morning. Welcome to Success Strategies for Viral Content Marketing. Now, if you're here, I'm guessing that you're already aware that traditional marketing methods are no longer effective, and you've probably seen that content is the way to gain global exposure online. And if you have posted content, you may be wondering why nobody likes your post. You may have a couple of comments or likes from people in your family or colleagues, but not really from your target audience. So I wanted to shed some light on this area. So I've asked an expert to join us who I believe is the best in the world at what he does. He's been listed on Forbes as the top 20 influencers for chief marketing officers, been ranked #1 global digital marketing influencer, #1 content marketing influencer, listed as top 20 digital marketing experts to follow on Twitter, world's top 40 social marketing talent, world's #1 business blogger, and he's the author of the book, which appeared on several best-selling lists. Blogging the Smart Way, How to Create and Market a Killer Blog with Social Media. So I'd like to welcome Jeff Bullis to the call. So Jeff, tell us, how did you get into content marketing in the first place?
Sort of as a passion project that sort of came out of a curiosity about social media in 2008. And also from reading a few books. So Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, which sort of inspired me to look at online as being a serious place to play, digital.
Great book.
Yeah, and then one of the other inspirations was David Meerman Scott's book, The New Rules of Marketing and PR, which talked about the ability of content to actually attract an audience. And having built other businesses a lot from cold calling, I'd like that idea of actually attracting customers and leads and sales. And then I sort of got onto Facebook and I noticed people's obsession. I went, wow, there's something going on here, and the same sort of behavior on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So I said, there's something going on. I'd like to write about this topic. So based upon that sort of background of Tim's book, David's book, and a little blog post by HubSpot that said if you have an inkling of what you want to write about, just start a blog. I went, okay, let's kick off a blog. So I didn't have much money, so I actually bought my domain name, which is my name, and then that's really all it cost me. And I just started writing about social media. So David Meerman Scott's book was about content marketing. He was calling it more like inbound marketing, which is a term HubSpot uses. But now today, the major term we use is content marketing. And so that idea I liked from David, I actually said, well, it sounds good. So what happened is I started creating content and the world showed up. That's the reality. So I became a crash test dummy for my idea. And, a year in, I was starting to be asked to speak in different places around the world and getting paid for it. So wow. That's how
you mentioned before we started recording that at the start you were up at 4 o'clock in the morning smashing out content. How much content were you actually writing in those days?
I think for 1 year I almost missed a working day. So 5 days a week from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. I wrote blog posts. So I just was on a mission. Initially started doing it at night, but I realised that sort of life got in the way, such as catching up with friends or a dinner. Mm-hmm. And mornings were that really special time that was just mine, that I could actually escape distraction. So social was turned off, emails turned off, and I created and published content and then marketed as well. So it wasn't just about creating it really was about pushing it out as well. So content marketing is 2 words, content and marketing, and you just can't create and hope the world's going to show up. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously there's a lot of people that are trying to reach similar success to what you've done. 90%, if not more, don't actually manage to do it effectively, don't manage to make a career out of it. What's the top, say, 1, 2 or 3 mistakes that you see content marketers do wrong? What do you see most of them following in the same sort of footsteps in terms of what they're doing to not get the results that you've got?
I think number one, they give up too soon. They might create 4 or 5, 10 blog posts and going, nothing's happening. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. and to actually keep putting content out and then being discovered by Google and then developing authority by Google is also a very important part of the equation. A lot of people think that content marketing is all about just creating content and sharing it, with one tweet. The reality is you've got to go multi-channel marketing. So it really requires persistent and consistent content creation and also hustling it out there. It's much harder now because it's a lot noisier, 8 years later than when I started. And there's some other things that are in the way a bit now, but it's still possible, and despite the challenges.
Yeah, interesting. And so some of the people tuning in would be, small business owners or perhaps even marketing managers who've got businesses to run and don't see content as something they can outsource. So how much time do you think they should be spending writing content? And is it more important to be consistent or is it, and do it, maybe say you're doing one article every fortnight, or is it really that important to be putting it out more regularly than that?
Yeah, the problem is a lot of owners especially come from what I call analog or other backgrounds, and digital is new to them. They don't get it. I think small business owners, even big business, doesn't get the power of content. So they see it as an expense. How often should you do it? Well, as much as time and resources allow within reason. So, once a fortnight maybe is not going to cut it. Some bloggers just do well with 1 day a week, like Ian Cleary with Razor Social. So it's an investment. You've got to think of it as actually building a digital asset, not as an expense, because you got to think, I love the quote by Bill Gates. It says a lot of people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Yeah. And the reality is that in this digital world, you're constantly being indexed and filed. Google's always filing you. It's always, and your content, essentially, as long as electricity stays on, is always going to be there. So it's like building the Great Wall of China. You've really got to just keep building it 1 day at a time, 1 word at a time, 1 blog post, or 1 video if you're a video blogger, or if you're an Instagrammer, it's 1 image at a time. So it is, you got to think of it in another way as opposed to an expense, because before you bought an ad on a radio or a newspaper, you posted it, next day, ad's over, done. There's nothing left except a memory. It's very different today.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's an awesome way to put it. Well, I guess next question is really about the future of content marketing. I've just seen technology evolve so fast, particularly in the last couple of years. What's something that business owners and marketers should keep their eye on to maintain a competitive edge looking forward?
One thing they're going to have to embrace is marketing automation. So content marketing along with digital has become an art and a science. So you've got to embrace both, the art of creating great, compelling content that touch people's hearts and minds. And then you've got to actually help you use technology to actually help you scale that, because you are not going to be able to scale your efforts as a small business just by getting up early. And so for me, the reality was, it was about 2 years ago, I realized that I needed to implement marketing automation to help me scale the business. And also it gives me, allows me to concentrate on building a business rather than just being stuck in what was just a passion project initially. Yeah. So it's really important to start to embrace marketing automation. There's platforms like HubSpot, there's platforms like Infusionsoft, Marketo. Just spoke at a conference in San Francisco for them. They're more at the enterprise end. So you've got the tools, and actually not expensive. From a couple of $100 a month, you can start effectively.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on influencer marketing?
Yeah, it's pretty hot at the moment. Influencer marketing, I'd say, sits in two pots. One is B2C, another one's B2B. B2C is more about, getting brand awareness out there, so that's the likes of a big influencer like a Beyonce or something like that, or a Kardashian. But on the other hand, B2B is going to be much more about driving, not just creating awareness at the top of the funnel, but also actually creating leads and sales. So, we've been running some influencer projects for startups, and we're working both at the awareness as well as driving leads by offering free premium content. So influencer marketing's got a long way to run yet. I believe that trying to reach your audience organically is going to get tougher unless you use influencers, because as we know, Facebook's moved from free to pay. It's become pay to play. So the reality is that influencer marketing allows you to reach an audience without you having to, build that credibility and trust. In other words, you're riding on the back of influencers or an influencer. So it's basically in those two camps, B2C and B2B, and there's different requirements for each. So, but it's still very embryonic, and I think everyone's still trying to work out how they can make it effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've really summed it up well there. I'm curious to see what happens with the business-to-business side of influencer marketing. I mean, particularly in Australia, I haven't seen too many case studies so far, but looking forward to seeing how it evolves. Gary Vaynerchuk is certainly the big advocate. I've been listening to some of his keynotes, and he was saying that it's one of the most underpriced areas of digital marketing at the moment.
Yep. Well, I think certainly I've been asked in the past to do a lot of free stuff, and I've just got to a point where I said I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah. Because essentially, Tiger Woods is paid tens of millions of dollars by Nike, for example, for them to reach his audience, for him to create credibility and trust for them. So influencers are starting to get paid, and they're going, well, the influencer shouldn't be paid because then he loses his credibility. Well, I think that's just bullshit. If Nike's sponsoring Tiger, does that make him unauthentic? No. So there's this mindset that's really interesting to watch and see brands. And, like we ran a program last year for a client strategy that I told them would be effective, and we drove 1,000 leads for them in just one email. Wow. So B2B marketing, influencer marketing, and we're actually packaging up a lot more influencer B2B. And also we've got some really, really good plans in terms of how we take it to the next level.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yep.
Yeah, so I noticed that Tim Ferriss, you mentioned before, on his website, and he has things like his top 10 productivity tools, and they are actually his top 10, but he's gone to each of them and said, hey, I'm going to promote your
Yep.
product on my website, so it's authentic. He doesn't lose any credibility, but at the same time he's getting paid for all the effort he's putting in.
Yeah, and he would basically be, I would say, in most cases, he would be using most of those, or has gone and said, good product.
It was a really useful list, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the people who are offering good value like yourself are the ones who win at the end of the day, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I believe you need to be, both promoting and creating content adds value to, people and businesses' lives. Yeah. And if you're doing that, then if you're making some money along the way, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. So there's a lot of discussions which I think are just superficial and don't understand how the world works and where the world's going. I've had to build out the virtual team, which has been fun. Just got a great team around me that allows me to basically do what I love and do some work. But it doesn't feel like work. That's what's been fabulous about the journey. It's just this passion project that escaped the lab, really. That's what happened.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you look very relaxed there in your T-shirt. I'm sure you got your board shorts on.
Well, during summer, it's very much board shorts. Yeah, the barefoot blogger, right? That's what it really is.